Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to In Conversation with the Royal Butler, and I'm pleased to say that on this occasion we've also got Shumba joining us because this is a very special week. This is afternoon tea week here in the UK, so I felt it was quite apt to do a conversation about Woburn Abbey, otherwise known as the home of afternoon tea. First thing I want to say is whoever came up with the idea of afternoon tea week is a genius, because who doesn't enjoy a nice cup of tea? In fact, I think it's safe to say that a tea can get rid of any kind of worries or stress or troubles. In fact, I think it's even been proven that certain teas can help reduce stress, as well as dashants. Shumba's obviously just getting himself comfortable here. Don't know if you just saw him there, but he obviously feels that he can help reduce stress as well. But anyway, as I said, I want to talk to you about Woburn Abbey, as I mentioned, which is also known unofficially as the home of afternoon tea, and I'll explain why shortly. But for some of you, I want to quickly start by saying a few of you might remember me from when I was at Woburn Abbey, and that's because of a TV series that I was in quite a few years ago. You won't believe this, it's over 20 years ago, but it was a reality TV series that was on BBC Two's on Friday nights. I believe it was about 7 p.m. So most people in my generation, can I say the teenagers, were all out and about. But a few of you might have remembered there was a couple of series on at that point, and one of them was Country House. What's really nice is a few of you still contact me to say that you remember me from that series. I think I still look a little bit the same. I have aged, obviously, but hopefully I've still got a few of the youthful looks from back then. But it's really nice when people do contact me and say they remember me from the series, and it was equally as nice when I used to, hopefully we're doing it again, but when I was giving my classes in person, it was equally nice when people would come up to me because they remember me from that series, which was one of the very first pieces of television that I ever did. In fact, I've done a few TV series since then, but that was the first series that I was involved in. So it was because of this TV series that I actually became aware of Woburn Abbey. It was in the January of 1999 that this new series about the stately home began. And at this point, I was working at a house in Scotland, Ben Alder Lodge, which was my first training butler housekeeping training programme, if you like. It's where I went into the world of private service. And I remember I watched a lot of television, as most of us did back then. We didn't really have social media. We didn't have social media at all back then. Really strange to say that, isn't it? But we watched television, and we had channels 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, if I remember correctly. We didn't even have Sky, but we could get this series, this Country House series, on BBC Two. And I was amazed at this wonderful house, this stately home, this wonderful family, the Marquess and Marchioness of Tavistock, and just having an insight into their lives. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to work for this family? Even though at the back of my mind I wanted to work for royals, but this just seemed an amazing opportunity to go and work in such a beautiful house for a beautiful family. And I decided to write a letter, and I wrote to the Marquess and Marchioness of Tavistock, and I remember writing the letter. I remember it so clearly, and just asking if there was any possibility that they might be looking for a trainee under butler. So I put out the kind of request in this letter and sent the letter and thought no more about it. As far as I was concerned, that was it was done. And if I got a response, of course I hoped for a response, but fantastic. But I was also aware that it was very likely I would hear nothing back. And it was about a week or so later that I got a response from the Marchioness, and to my shock, she invited me to go and have afternoon tea with the Marquess and Marchioness. And it was about a week later, I got a letter back from the Marchioness of Tavistock. And to my shock, she invited me to Woburn Abbey for tea with the Marchioness and her husband, the Marquess. And I remember going through to my parents and saying the letter that I've had back from Woburn Abbey, it's from the Marchioness, inviting me to go and have tea with them. And my poor mother did not know what to do or what to say, because I had never been out of Scotland. I'd never been out of Scotland. And I think the last time my mother was out of Scotland was in the 60s. So, and my father. And my mum felt that it was unfair for me to travel on my own. I mean, at this point, I would have been about 20 years old. And she wanted to obviously to go with me if I was going to go. So we all agreed that this was a great idea, and we made the arrangements. I think I actually did it via phone call. I think there was a secretary or somebody that I had to phone and to arrange it. And soon after, we went down. I want to say it was in April. I have a feeling it was in the April time. And we went down to Woburn Abbey by train. We got the train from my local station, and then I had an aunt who sadly is no longer with us, and her second husband who picked us up, and we stayed with them, and it was all arranged that they would take us to the Abbey the following day to meet the Marquess and Marchioness. And the following day, I remember getting up and super excited, super nervous, putting on the uniform and everything. And I say the uniform, my suit, not my uniform, my suit, so that I wanted to obviously try to give the best impression I could. And off we went to Woburn Abbey. And it was, from memory, I want to say it was about maybe half an hour, 40-minute drive. It could have been even longer. And as we arrived on the estate, I recognised it from the series, because I'd been watching the series, and I recognised the entrance and everything. And that's when the nerves really kicked in. And we drove in the way the visitors still go in to this very day. But when you go past the ticket office and you kind of drive around the park, actually it might have changed. It might not be the way that you still go in. I haven't been for a couple of years, and I haven't actually been as a visitor. I've never been as a visitor. I've gone to visit the family, but I haven't gone as a visitor. So I'm not exactly sure how you now would drive in. But anyway, we drove in the way that everyone else went in, past the ticket office, along the front. So you drove past the house. But as we get to the drive down to the house, or you carry on as a visitor. So I remember going down the main drive at this point. So obviously the other cars were carrying on. We went down the main drive, and this is when the nerves really kicked in. And as we approached the front of the house, I remember looking, and I could see Lord T. I recognised him in one of the windows. And the other thing that was really strange, I recognised all the cars. I saw Lord T's car, Lady T's car, because I watched the series. I knew their vehicles, and I was super excited. And then the car got parked. My aunt and her husband parked the car. My mum and myself got out. We went in this little side. I think it was a side door from memory, and we waited for a few moments, and then one of the butlers came to collect us, and we walked with him through to the room we were going to meet Lord and Lady T, Marquess and Marchioness of Tavistock. I should mention there was a kind of a fun family nickname that we were allowed to call them, which was Lord and Lady T, which those of you that watched the series would have been aware of this. And the butler that took us, he was very young. I mean, I say very young, he was probably my age, maybe a little bit older. And I was 20, as I mentioned, and so he was maybe 21, 22. And we walked along. He didn't really say much. He was a little bit grand for my liking. And he then walked us down into this little sitting room, again, which I recognised from the series. It was so funny. And as we walked in, there was Lord T standing on one side and Lady T on the other. And I was just so excited to to meet them, and they were absolutely lovely. The Lady T came forward, did the introductions, and Lord T then said, please sit down. And I remember sitting with my mum on this seat on the side, and Lady T was kind of to my right, and Lord T was again on the right, but just up a little bit further on another chair. And we had an interview. We had an interview all about. Well, I say an interview. It was more of a. It was more of a discussion, but it kind of turned into an interview, because initially they'd only invited me to go and have tea, and this discussion turned into a kind of interview, because they were also asking about my background and what I'd done, and why did I go into the profession, and why would I like to work for them. And we were there for probably about 40 odd minutes, I would say, and the butler brought some tea in, and we had tea, and which was, now when I think about it, how amazing in Woburn Abbey to sit down with the then Marquess and Marchioness of Tavistock and have afternoon tea, but have tea with them. I can't remember, I think there was biscuits. I think we had some biscuits with it. And it was wonderful. It was lovely. And at the end of it, there was no real kind of, I was a bit confused, because I was thinking, have I just been interviewed? It was really funny. I was hopeful, of course I was hopeful. And then Lady T said, I'm going to be in touch with you. One of the things that was said during this meeting, this discussion, was she mentioned that the under butler might be leaving. And I said, oh, that's a shame. But she pointed out that it hadn't really been properly discussed, so not to say anything. And I remember thinking, oh, okay. So that was slightly exciting. And then I thought, well, there's going to be an opportunity, obviously, but whether he knows that or not, who knows? And then she actually called this butler in question to come and take us away. And so he came in, and we said our goodbyes at this point. As I mentioned, we've been there for quite a while, 45 minutes or so. And then we leave, and we walk down this corridor, and this butler then shows us out by the main entrance. And as we go, he's again very, very grand. And he said, thank you so much for coming to visit us. We do hope we meet again soon, one day or something like that. And I remember thinking, I don't think we are. I don't know if you're going to be here. So it was that, I had that kind of little kind of giggle to myself. But again, not really expecting anything, just thought maybe it was just maybe it was just wishful thinking. And we then had we were actually put on a tour of the house after that. So we were given tickets, and we then had a tour of the beautiful Woburn Abbey and the gardens, and then went to the coffee shop. And it was great fun. I mean, to actually go round this beautiful abbey is extraordinary, because I mean, Woburn Abbey, I mean, the building has been there for I want to say 600, 700 years or something. It's been there for a long time. It was a monastery. Originally it was a monastery, and then after good old Henry VIII, the dissolution of the monasteries, got rid of all the monasteries, and a lot of them were kind of handed over to I want to say friends of the king, or people that had done stuff for the king, which they then saw these buildings turned into private homes. And that's exactly what happened with Woburn Abbey, hence why it was called an abbey. And it was turned into this beautiful, stately home. And over the years, it has hosted royalty, presidents, VIPs, celebrities, all sorts of amazing people have crossed the threshold of Woburn Abbey, and it's just full of history. And if you ever get the opportunity, as I've said about other properties, you must visit. So a few weeks later, I was at my job in Scotland, and a letter arrived for me, and it was from the Marchioness of Tavistock, and basically saying we would like to offer you a position as a trainee butler, so as an under butler. So I was going to be trained as a butler at Woburn Abbey. And I couldn't believe it. And I always remember when I told my parents, my dad was slightly apprehensive because one of his family members, a cousin of his who grew up with him almost like a brother, he, about the same age, left to move to England. And it absolutely devastated my dad. And suddenly here I am about the same age doing the same. And I remember my father saying to me, but if you do this, you can do it for a couple of years, but we want you to come home again. Obviously they want you back in Scotland. And I remember saying, yeah, of course I will. And what's terrifying, that was 22 years ago. So those 2 years have come and gone, plus the 20. And sadly, my parents are no longer with us, as some of you might know. And I think that was but latterly they became very proud and they were really glad of what I did. And of course I went and visited, went home and visited. But initially, I always remember that conversation in my kitchen. I remember that when there was a slight bit of panic about the fact that I was leaving home. Now, what was really strange and funny at the same time, those of you that know me and know that about this dream about wanting to be a butler and working for the royal family and also wanting to work in television, about the same time I got a phone call from the BBC, and it was initially the butler of Woburn Abbey who said, do you mind if we pass your information on to the BBC, because the people that make the reality show want to speak to you about being part of this show. And this was a dream come true, because this was television. Suddenly here I was getting the opportunity to work in television. So I couldn't believe it. And of course I said, I got permission from my parents. I thought I better check they don't mind me doing this, but they loved the idea. And I went back and said to this butler, I think his name was Roger the butler, and I remember thinking this would be an amazing opportunity. So I got a phone call from the BBC, I think it was the following day, to ask if I'd like to be part of this reality show, and I said I would love to. And the next thing, they send a film crew up to Scotland to spend a couple of days film with me, and then to follow me actually going to Woburn Abbey, because I had to go and have another meeting with the family and to meet other members of staff and everything ahead of me taking the position on. And this was soon after my 21st birthday. I had my 21st birthday, and I think it was the week after that all this happened, and it was great fun. It was extraordinary. Can you imagine back then, film crews were not, for those of you that know about filming today, when you do a reality show or a TV show, you can have a team, it can even be one or two. Back then, this was a huge team. A huge team came up, and it was great fun. And maybe that's a conversation for another day. A lot of the TV work that I've done, some of you might find that quite interesting, and what it was like getting into that world. But anyway, the point was, the first bit of filming we were going to do was me leaving Scotland. So it's all documented. It's all out there. My very first time that I left Scotland, the very first time on a plane with my mother, my mum came back with me again. All of it was documented. And on this occasion, we stayed at a hotel in Woburn, and then I think we were there for a couple of days, and it was just to get introduced to other people and to understand what the job would involve. And then we came back home to Scotland, and then it was a couple months later, beginning of August, when I took up the position as a butler, or to be exact, a trainee butler at Woburn Abbey. I remember when I started at Woburn Abbey, I was amazed at the history, the grandeur, everything. It was just a wow factor. I'd never been away from home. Suddenly I was living on my own in my own little flat, which was great because it was right next to where I would work, and I was making money. I was getting a great little wage. I was training in something that I wanted to do, and it was a dream come true. Now, there is a lot of stories. There's a lot of wonderful and sad experiences during my time at Woburn Abbey, and I think those would be conversations for other days. If you'd like to hear more of those conversations and some of the highs and the lows of my time at the Abbey. And as I mentioned, I'm extremely lucky that I still call them friends. I'm still friends with the family to this very day, and we do. I say we. I think there's always a bit of kind of fun or humour over the fact that with what I've done over those years since obviously leaving. But I owe so much to that family. They were like a second family to me. And to this day, I always say to them, I feel I owe them so much for giving me the opportunity to train in something that I love, that I wanted to do. So as I've mentioned, this being afternoon tea week, I felt it was quite apt to talk to you a little bit about Woburn Abbey and to give you the background story as to why and how I got there. But obviously the thing about Woburn Abbey is it's famous for many things, but one of those things is afternoon tea. And some of you might know the story and other people might not know the story, and that's what I want to share with all of you just now. So the present Duke and Duchess of Bedford is actually the son of the Marquess I've mentioned, the Marquess and the Marchioness. The Marquess is very sadly no longer with us. In fact, he actually died while I was still at Woburn Abbey. But his son, who is a wonderful, fantastic human being, he's the present Duke of Bedford, the 15th Duke of Bedford, and it's his ancestor, the 7th Duchess of Bedford, Duchess Anna Maria of Bedford, who is the inventor, the creator of this wonderful afternoon tea that we all enjoy, and that has become very much part of a British way of life. And everybody, I want to say everybody enjoys an afternoon tea. I mean, the reality is we all drink tea, and depending on where you are and what you're doing, a lot of people try to stop for an afternoon tea, and certainly in royal and aristocratic homes, it's very much part of daily activities. And then, as a lot of you will know, in different hotels and establishments, afternoon teas are extremely popular, and it's one of my most popular talks. I give talks and lessons on how to enjoy a royal afternoon tea. And I'm going to quickly mention that I actually have been doing, I gave a very special YouTube live the other day on Wednesday, just gone, on how to enjoy a royal afternoon tea. And quick, huge thank you, because it sold out, and we had a full house, and it was really good fun. And due to the feedback and the ongoing emails asking for another one, I've just added some more dates, and the link's just below this video. And if you go to the royalbutler.co.uk website, you'll find another link there as well, so that you can book your ticket. And they're £20 for the class. The class is roughly about an hour, but as for those of you that joined the class the other day, it was about 1 hour 13 minutes. It did overrun, but it was great because there was lots of questions, and I think we had quite a lot of fun. So there you go. So there's going to be another online class, but as I said, that's one of the things I now teach. I do the classes because there's such a huge interest in afternoon tea. So the 7th Duchess of Bedford, Anna Maria, was actually staying away from Woburn Abbey. She was staying with the Duke of Rutland up at Belvoir Castle. And the story that has been told over many, many decades is that while she was there, she was horrified to discover there was a huge gap between lunch and dinner, because meal times were changing at that point. Lunch was not new, but it hadn't been around for a very long time. And of course, dinner was getting later because of obviously lunch becoming such a big part of the meal. And then you had dinner, which was kind of moving around. I mean, if you go back centuries, your main meal was in the middle of the day, but obviously that evolved, and it's moved over the years, over the centuries, and it's also to do with daylight as well. And then in the Victorian era, you would then it would be very obvious that you would have your breakfast, you would have your lunch, and then you'd have your dinner. But as the dinner was getting later, there was, well, especially in some households, and this is what happened in the Duke of Rutland's home, the Duchess of Bedford was horrified, and it was reported, now this could be a kind of myth, but it was reported that she had a sinking feeling. And I don't think it meant she was on a boat or something. I think what she meant, obviously, was that she was hungry. So she asked the butler to bring her some tea, which was already established. I mean, tea has been around for centuries. In fact, it was very much popularised by Catherine Braganza, the wife of Charles II, but it was taken for medicinal purposes, for medical reasons. It was believed to be very good. Well, as we know it is today, it's good for your health. Well, certain teas are very good for your health, the herbal teas, and so tea had been part of the kind of the way of life in the UK, but the Duchess wanted to have it in the afternoon, which is not that unusual, but she also wanted to have something to eat with it, which is probably a little bit more unusual. And the story goes that she asked for a sandwich. Now, I should mention the sandwich was already an invention. It was again created by the Earl of Sandwich. There is such a family, and I should quickly mention that one of the present members of the family, a wonderful Julie Montague, who is a very good friend, and I've said to Julie it'd be really good fun to do a video with her, but her family were the inventors of the sandwich, one of the ancestors, and it was basically some meat between two pieces of bread, and it was brought to this Earl while he was gambling because he got hungry. So the sandwich had already been invented. So the Duchess of Bedford asked for a sandwich, had tea, and it was also reported that she was given some other little bits to kind of help to give, so that she had something that was substantial. I don't think we'll be talking about scones and cream and jam and cakes, but who knows? Who knows what she actually had? But the point was, this was the beginning of this tradition of afternoon tea. Now, her very good friend, and she was also a lady in waiting to this particular lady, was Queen Victoria. And Queen Victoria was introduced to the idea of taking tea and sandwiches by the Duchess of Bedford. She loved this idea. And then Queen Victoria then continued this tradition and introduced it to her household, her friends. And if you can imagine, the way that very much royals to this very day, if a royal does something, other people copy. I mean, even look at the Duchess of Cambridge with fashion, how she wears a certain dress and the shops sell out. Well, back then it was very much also to do, as well as fashion, it was to do with the way they ate and drank. So the fact that the Queen was enjoying this meal in the afternoon, apparently around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I say apparently because obviously the timings have evolved, and it's very much today you would have it between 4 and 6 p.m. But it was something that Queen Victoria would enjoy. Her friends thought this is a great idea, and that's how it became the popular meal that it now is. The sad part of this story is that after her husband Prince Albert died, the Queen would still ask for the afternoon tea for the two of them, and she would still pour the tea for herself and for Prince Albert, which I always thought was really sad, but it shows you the love she had for her prince. Now, of course, thanks to the Duchess of Bedford, that's obviously where it all began. Queen Victoria, I like to think, was a bit of a PR machine and promoted it, and of course it then evolved into the 1900s, and then you'd find different establishments, hotels introducing champagne teas, which become hugely popular, and it's just continued to evolve. And we even have afternoon teas where it can be savoury, it can be sweet, and as I said, it's just become a very much a big part of the British way of life. So if you come to the UK, you must have an afternoon tea, and if you get the opportunity, why not go to Woburn Abbey and have the afternoon tea, because they've obviously got a coffee shop. I'm aware that they do afternoon teas there, and I think if you really want to enjoy the experience of afternoon tea, why not have it at the home of the lady that invented this great British pastime, the afternoon tea. I've been asked over the years, did I ever have afternoon tea with the family? And no, I wouldn't, because if I was there as a butler, I'd very much be there serving it. Of course, I'd be serving it and very much involved in it. But it wasn't something that I wouldn't sit down and have it with the family. But I would have afternoon teas. I did, because watching how they did it, I would then go and have one myself, possibly even in the little coffee shop or something. And it was great, learning very much from the family. I mean, what better experience than to learn from the family who created this iconic meal. And then obviously when it went to up for the royal family, I then learnt how they enjoyed it, and today that's why I do my royal tea classes, where I teach all of you how to enjoy having tea like a royal. hope you've all enjoyed today's In Conversation. It's been a little bit obviously of a kind of mix between the introduction to Woburn and how that began for me, but also very importantly about the afternoon tea, which, as I said earlier on, I felt is quite important being afternoon tea week. And I hope all of you are enjoying some afternoon tea this week, whether it be in the week or the weekend. I hope you get the opportunity to go out and have an afternoon tea as well. Now, I know I mention this every week, but thank you so much for all the likes, the shares, the subscribers. Thank you to all the new subscribers. I love it when you put your little messages saying that you've just subscribed. That is amazing. I'm really honoured and humbled that you've followed my channel, and I'm loving the comments. I love the interactions, the conversations. A few of you, I feel as if I now know you, even though I don't know you, but I feel as if I do because of those conversations. And it's great when I join the live chat like I'm just now and seeing a few of you obviously chatting as old friends. And not only that, I love the advice you give each other. Sometimes when I'm not around to give the advice, or there's a question. In fact, the other day there was somebody struggling to join the tea class and other people giving advice as to what to do, and it's great. I just love all this. So thank you for building this community, and please keep building it, and please get your friends to subscribe. I'm really keen to kind of keep getting the subscribers to go up, and without your help it would be almost impossible. So please keep getting everyone to subscribe, keep sharing the videos, and keep those comments and likes coming in, and your suggestions. You will note that I'm making notes of your suggestions, and I will create content based around all of that. Now, one other little thing to mention, I have a little surprise for all of you this weekend. I didn't do an at home with the Royal Butler because I was just so full on with the live YouTube live class, and then I had quite a lot of other things going on, so it was a bit difficult to actually film the at home with the Royal Butler. But I have got a surprise for you this weekend. I'm planning on putting something up either Saturday or Sunday, so keep a lookout. It's a new idea, something I want to trial and to see what all of you think. I'm not going to say anything about it just yet. I'm going to get it done, put it out there, and then we'll see what you all think. But I hope you enjoy it. And as I said, thank you for watching. Shimba has been here the whole time. He has fallen asleep. It's a dog's life, isn't it? Isn't it fantastic? There you go, Shim. Did you enjoy today's In Conversation? He loves, can I tell you something? He loves tea. It's really strange. If I have a cup of tea, in my sitting room, and if I walk away from it and don't go back to it, I have a couple of times caught him. It's very naughty, and I have told him off just to assure you all, but I have caught him trying to drink my tea. And on one occasion, I went in and I remember thinking I must have drank it because it had gone, and then the penny dropped that this little one had actually decided to enjoy it. So he is a tea lover. Not that I give them tea, because I have no idea if it's good for them or not, but I don't want to kind of get them into the habit. The next thing I'll walk in, you'll be having an afternoon tea at the table. You'll be eating the sandwiches and everything, and probably, but I mean, you'll probably do the tea etiquette the correct way, because he's learnt from the best, haven't you? Right, I think it's time for his beauty sleep again. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and stay safe. And once again, thank you for watching. And I hope you enjoy your cup of tea over the next couple of days.